this is David Nilsson of the Swedish death metal band Feral, and you're listening to The Bloodshed with the Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio International.
David, thank you very much for taking time out for this interview, and welcome to the Metal Bloodshed with the Vampire on Metal Messiah Radio.
Oh, thank you very much, man. I'm glad to be here.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Initially starting out as parody act when the band were known simply as Valmer Hook. Swedish outfit Feral have slowly taken on a more serious tone with their eventual change of name and soon started to shed their black death metal sound to take on a more death and roll influenced direction. Performed in a small northern Swedish town Norsjö in late 2003 by vocalist David Nilsson and bassist Viktor Eriksson. David, who else completed this lineup, and how long has it taken since the band released their first demo in 2007?
No, we actually released 2 demos when we were called Valmer Hook, but the first Feral demo was released in 2007. When we were just called Valmer Hook, it was just me and our bass player, and our names were Valmer, the bass player, and Hook was me. But I wouldn't really count those proper demos. We were just like fucking around with a drum computer, and it's been we've called it like a parody act in the past, but I think, I was 14 when we released the first demo, and I think we disguised our inability to play good metal as a parody. It was like a shield for us that we could say that this is nothing serious that we're doing, so we could ward off some criticism. We could easily fend off by saying it's just for fun, it's just a parody.
Yes, but when and how come you decided to switch over to a more serious, and how did you get the name Feral?
Yeah, we moved to a nearby coastal town called Skellefteå, where we live now, and it's still a small town, but it's much bigger than the place we initially started, and we actually found more people that were willing to play metal. And when we could actually rehearse and get better at playing, it came natural to us to start doing it more for real, so to say, because before that we had no ability to form a band with a full lineup. It was basically just me and our bass player Viktor that were interested in both listening to metal and actually playing it in our hometown.
And how did you came up with a band name?
Feral. Well, we think it fitted the music. It's raw, it's primal, it's wild, and that's the way we wanted it. And we also knew that we wanted a short name, because at the time a lot of bands would have full sentences as names. All the good names like Demon, Satan, Slayer, Venom and stuff like that. We wanted something like that, short and good.
For all the audience not to confuse, this is Feral, the death metal band out of Sweden, because we have so many Ferals band names from Canada, from Spain, from Sweden itself, from the United States. So this is the death metal band from Sweden, okay?
Yeah, we actually didn't know that there were several other bands called Feral when we chose that name. Maybe we would have chosen differently back then, but I think a lot of those bands you mentioned now were actually formed after us, and some of them even after we released our first album.
If I'm not wrong, some of them don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, it might as well be so. But it's also a band, it's kind of hard to find a band called Feral. If you type in Feral to Google, you'll find animal shelters and videos of people playing video games online and stuff like that. Many pages of that before you find the band Feral. It's not a perfect name, but I like.
David, with 3 full-length albums, which one was just released and 1 split and 1 EP? How has the journey been for you and the band since the first demo, Grave Robber?
It's been a lot of hard work. Of course, when we started, the whole digital age had already begun. Back then, we used MySpace and stuff like that to communicate with the fans and spread the music. Of course, also printed physical copies of all our demos and stuff like that. I think the biggest change from back then is the digital stuff. Like we are talking to each other now from across the world, but it's so easy today to communicate with the fans and stuff like that. And it's great, but it's a bit tiring as well, because you have to be available almost on call all the time. But the journey's been fantastic, releasing albums, and even though we're doing it on a small scale, you know, compared to a lot of bands, there's a lot of bands that struggle to even get an album out and don't get to do it. So it's an honor. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
If we go back 2003 when you started the band, up to now, we're talking about 16 long years already, and you're still young guy. But those 16 years is so many years already that you have put in music. And looking back, you're very happy to what you and the band has achieved so far?
I'm very happy, and I'm glad to be doing it with the guys in the bands. They are my best friends, and making this music with them it's fantastic. And we actually haven't changed that many members throughout the years either. We live in a small town, so even changing members would be really hard to find new ones, but that's not the only thing that keeps us together, because it's great.
Talking about the band's career, Fur began recording demos and playing some very high-profile gigs, including a month-long European tour, deal with metal legend Master in February 2009, and a mini tour as well with 6 Feet Under. That was September the same year. In between these tours, for return to the studio to record a highly acclaimed Welcome to the Graveyard, the band's second demo. David, how was the European tour done with Master, and the mini one you've done with 6 Feet Under, both in the same year, 2009? Was it fun on the road with these guys, and did the band gain a lot of experience out of this?
Oh yeah, for sure. I was fresh out of school. I think 2009 was my final year when I left school. We knew that we were heading out on the tour when I left school. It was the first test if that would be something that we want to do. And in a way, it was a kind of a deep dive, you know. I think we were out for about 4 weeks with Master. So it was...
That was a great challenge, man.
At least a long commitment for a first tour. We didn't know if we were going to hate it after a couple of days. And also there's a lot of money involved. We had to drain our savings to be able to do that at young age. It was fantastic. Paul from Master was really, really great to us, and we had a great time being out with them.
You didn't care to empty the bank account things. Come on.
Exactly. And I was actually, as I said, I left school and I started working immediately after that.
No, but this gonna pay off. I'm gonna tour with Master. What the hell?
Yeah, I was offered a full-time job. And since I hadn't worked before that, I didn't have any vacation days to take out. So I told them that I'm going to be away for a month. And if I don't have a job when I get back, that's so be it. But they were cool to me, and they said I could leave for a month to...
How have you done? A couple months after you came back, you say, okay, now I need a couple more weeks off since I'm going to tour with 6 Feet Under. How was that?
Yeah, 6 Feet Under was actually just 4 gigs. So it was only a couple of days or like a week I was away for that. It was a lot different from touring with Master. It was us and like 3 other opening acts, and also it was Jungle Rot from the US. So I think it was 3 tour buses driving in like a caravan. So it was a lot bigger, and 6 Feet Under had their own tour bus, and I think Chris Barnes was the only one allowed at the top floor of their tour bus, and he didn't eat with us. And so it was, we had a good time by ourselves, I have to say, but it was a community when we were out with Master, and all the bands hanged out with each other and stuff like that. The guys in Jungle Rot were really cool to us as well. Yeah, they watched our shows a couple of times and spoke to us and had a couple of beers with us afterwards, and were really cool to us young guys.
It was great.
I can't say that I saw Chris Barnes at all at the tour we did at 6 Feet Under.
But you was happy with the guys from Master. They all treat you guys very cool then.
Oh yeah, fantastic guys. Me and Paul are still in touch. Not very often, but he writes me sometimes then and then to see how things are, and I really, really appreciate it, and I really appreciate how they took care of us on our first tour.
Mr. Speckman.
Yeah.
Okay, continue with this interview, David. With this lineup, I'm talking about you, David, Nilsson, Hook on vocals, Viktor, Klingstedt, Valmer on bass, Markus, Lindahl, Big Man on guitar, Peter, Nilsson, Svarte on guitar, Richard Lundmark, Damian on drums. A firm and strong sound and determination in the world. The group recorded their debut full-length Dragged to the Altar in 2010, which was released on April 26, 2011 via Ibex Moon Records. The album started off quick thrashing hooks that groove non-stop throughout once inside the tomb and most of the other track. I still remember all these great tracks. To Say So, Judas, Welcome to the Graveyard, Grave Robber, Malevolent, Summoning, with loud and punctuated riffing that flows very fucking well. That remind us of bands like Entombed, Bloodbath, Dismember, and etc. What a great debut album, David. Did you know John McEntee before in order to have nailed this great record deal with Ibex Moon Records?
First of all, thank you very much. But no, I didn't know John beforehand to that. It was actually Neil from a band called Fatalist that was also signed to Ibex Moon. We were in touch when we released our demos and traded a couple of demos with each other, and he helped us out to get a deal with Ibex Moon and get in touch with Jan from Incantation.
Did the band receive a lot of recognition with this album, and how was the band European tour this time with Demonical Gun?
Ibex Moon was an American label, and I don't really know if the album was better received in America. Maybe that was the case, but the album was very well received from the people who heard it. I don't think it made a big splash in the scene, but the tour with the guys in Demonical was great. It was really fun for us to be on the road with another Swedish band as well, and by that time it wasn't our first tour anymore, so we knew what to expect and stuff like that. And the guys in Demonical were fantastic as well. Really, really cool guys that we are still somewhat in touch with.
Yes, they are cool. I met them at a festival in Slovakia a couple of years ago. We even took pictures, have beers together.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they're great. I think they've changed a lot of members since we toured with them, but Martin is still there. I guess he's the backbone of the band.
But do you still remember which cities you guys hit on tour with Demonical?
I think we were in Berlin. Of course, the first gig was in Stockholm. I remember that. Then we were supposed to play in Denmark, but that show was cancelled. So we had a day off immediately after our first gig. So we spent that day in Denmark. Then I think we played some biker place in Germany. There's always a lot of shows in Germany when you tour. Then we were in France for the first time. Also in Italy for the first time, I remember. Yeah, and also the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, and England.
The band received very, very high acclaim.
I think quite a good reaction, especially considering I think our album was just released like maybe a week before the first show of the tour. Even when we toured with Master and 6 Feet Under, we only had our demos out, but I think that helped spread our name and spread our demos as well. So I think a lot of people that saw us on the tour with Demonical when we had an album out had already seen us once, or at least heard our demos in the past.
Yeah.
And now we finally had an album to show off.
Some of the songs on the album were also on the demo, so these fans knew your songs already.
Yeah, I think all songs on the albums was from
the demo.
No, the song Malevolent Summoning was brand new for the album, but all of the rest of them had been released on either the Welcome to the Graveyard demo or the Grave Robber demo.
Talking about the albums, David, you guys started writing the album for the following debut that has started immediately after your tour, but the recording of the album was delayed due to lineup changes when Richard Lundmark and Peter Nilsson left the band to pursue other interests after having recorded the song for a Death Cult EP, split along the German band Ravel in Flesh, released through Joe Black Records. Any particular reason that these guys parted away with the band, and how long was the recording process delayed?
It was delayed several years because we got back in 2011, and I think in 2013 we were ready to start recording the new album. But Rickard, our drummer, left to start playing with a band also from North Sweden called Sonaria. No hard feelings about that. He took a chance to play with a bigger band, and I think they play a kind of death metal that is more up his alley than the stuff we were and are doing. Petter was actually going to school. He missed our tour with Demonical, and we had to use a stand-in guitarist on the tour with Demonical because he was finishing up his degree in audio engineering.
Is your brother?
No, he's not my brother. We went to school with each other, and a lot of people assumed we were brothers. No, he's not my brother, only in a figurative sense, not in a literal. Because Petter is still very much involved with the band. He's actually mixed all our albums since the first album. The first album was not mixed by Petter, but all of our releases since then have been mixed by him. So he's kind of behind the scenes member still.
Okay, talking about that cold EP you released, that was a split with these guys from Germany. I remember interviewed them 2 or 3 years ago. I'm looking forward to interview them again since they have a new release out. I'm talking about the band Ravel in Flesh. How did you meet these guys? Were they on tour as well when you met?
Yeah, actually it was when we toured with Demonical. We played in the town of Aalen in Germany. And I met Ralph from Ravel in Flesh, their singer. I think he worked at the club where we were playing, and we had a couple of beers afterwards and started talking. He also wrote a fanzine, I think, called Mystical Music Mag, or he wrote for it at least. So he did an interview with me after we got home from the tour, an old-fashioned email interview, sending emails back and forth. And we kept on talking and have been in quite regular contact since. Me and him send a lot of demos to each other and ask each other's opinions on stuff. So when he asked if we wanted to do a split with Ravel in Flesh, because they do a lot of that, those kind of releases, we said of course, because we had just finished up doing some pre-production recordings for the album. That's why we have that song, As the Feast Begins, recorded with the original lineup on that split, but it's later re-recorded with our current lineup on the album that followed afterwards.
Talking about lineup, the band was later joined ex-Armageddon drummer Roger Markström, and Markus continued as a solo guitarist, and the recording process for the next album could be started. The new album at a time where That Dreams Dwell was released in May 2015 through Cyclone Empire, with killer tunes like Swallow, like Darkness, Creatures Among the Coffin, The Crawler, Mass Resurrection, etc. How was the mixing and mastering gone with no longer feral band member Peter Nilsson at River Hill Audio, and going back this record label, the German record label? Have you received a good deal via Cyclone Record? Compared to Ibex Moon Records?
Yeah, it was actually great to work with the German label. They, as I said, Ibex Moon were based in America, so of course the guys in Germany were a little bit easier to get a hold of. I could actually pick up the phone and call them if I wanted to. And they were at the time one of our favorite labels. Cyclone Empire put out some fantastic albums around that time by bands like Demonical and Facebreaker, Funebrarum, and some of the best albums at that time, we thought. So it was great. And regarding the lineup and recording, as I said, Petter stopped playing guitar for us, but he continued on as our sound engineer. We still have very close contact with him.
Yeah, you hired Roger Markström to join the band. How was your contact with Roger? How did he get himself involved with the band?
As I mentioned earlier, we live in a quite small town. That's why we actually couldn't find another guitar player. So Markus continued being the sole guitar player in the band. And Roger was among the few other drummers in our town that we knew played extreme metal, and me and Viktor had some brief contact with him in the past because me and Viktor had a short period of time where we trained martial arts, and Roger is a couple of years older than us and had actually been practicing for a long time. He's a black belt. So we had met him on some trainings and stuff like that. So we knew he was a cool guy. But he hadn't played metal drums for quite a long time. He had been in a couple of bands playing more of hard rock music, and he was very excited to start playing some D-beat and blast beats again. We asked him if he would be... Actually, our drummer that left, Rickard, got in touch with Roger and asked if he would like to step in and take over.
That's very cool from him.
Yeah, we had a couple of practice sessions with him, and he started off as a session drummer playing for us live. And when we had the new album Where Dead Dreams Dwell out, we considered Roger a full-time member of the band, and it's been great. Fantastic drummer.
I think he has a double duty, the drummer and the bodyguard, since he has a black belt.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, the band released an EP mini album from the Mortuary. That was December 2016 via Cyclone Empire, with great tunes on this mini EP: The Hand of the Devil, Reborn in the Morgue, The Rise, again, outstanding tunes. Tell us about this EP and why has you chosen to add the pentagram cover Relentless to this EP?
Yeah, as we said, the recording of Where Dead Dreams Dwell was delayed a lot. We were ready to record the album in 2013, but it was delayed about 2 years, so it came out in 2015. So at the time we got into the studio to record that album, we had written a lot more material than we needed for an album, because we always try to write more songs that we need. For an album that has 10 songs on it, we usually want to have about 15 to record, so that we can put together the 10 songs that we think fit together the best. But when we recorded Where Dead Dreams Dwell, I think we had well over 20 songs. So Where Dead Dreams Dwell and From the Mortuary are actually recorded at the same time, but we didn't want to release an album with 15 songs on it, because nobody has the time to listen to that. So we felt it was better to keep a couple of the songs and then later on also record the pentagram cover. That was added to the old recording session. And the pentagram cover, I think we realized, I used to live in an apartment on the 4th floor where I had a huge balcony where we could have a lot of barbecue parties and stuff. I had really long cables to my stereo system, from the speakers to the stereo. So I could actually carry the large speakers out through the window and put them on the balcony. And we sat there and listened to the Pentagram album.
Music for the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. I lived really close to a bar that also had a rooftop bar. If we were really loud on my balcony, the noise was usually blamed on the bar next door.
Yeah. So the police goes there to the bar.
Yeah, exactly. But so we sat listening to the Relentless album and realized that riff would work kind of well with the D-beat drums on it, and it would sound kind of like, I think it's No Remorse by Metallica. So we got the idea to try to rework it into a death metal track and try to do it really Swedish style of it, and I think it turned out kind of well.
Okay, for current members, you, David Nilsson, Hook, vocals, Viktor, Klingstedt, Valmer as bassist, Markus, Lindahl, Big Mac, guitarist, Roger Markström, Phycon, Sebastian, Lejon, Sebbe as guitarist. The band rejoined with Sebastian, the guitarist, 10 years after he left the band. Why did you recruit Sebastian back into the lineup after 10 years?
Well, Sebastian played with us for a very short time 10 years ago. He played on the track Altar of Necromancy that we released on a big compilation album called Resurrected and Festering Slime. And then he left the band due to personal reasons. And for a long time, he was also a member of the band Sonaria that our first drummer, left to play with. And when Petter left the band, we couldn't find another guitarist to fill his spot. And since Sebastian was busy with his other band Sonaria, and we weren't really sure if he would have time for another band or if he was even interested in playing our kind of death metal anymore, we felt it was better to continue with one guitarist. But our goal was always to have two guitarists again when we would have the chance.
Okay.
And we knew that now we asked Sebastian to rejoin. We knew that Sonaria was having some downtime and that he was
able.
Yeah, he was available for us. We had a party in our rehearsal room where we were playing. We had written all the material for the new album, Flesh for Funerals Eternal, and we wanted to play the tracks to our friends and stuff to hear their opinions of it. And when he was really excited to be there and really excited about the songs, we asked him if he would like to play guitar on the album. He joined there and then. We actually had to write him a text message the day after to see if he remembered that he joined the band.
He was drunk?
Yeah, we all were.
Okay. In July 2017, Feral announced their signing Transcending Obscurity Records and started recording their third album soon after having been rejoined by Sebastian. For the last two albums, Feral went from being on the German flagship Cyclone Empire to now the biggest Indian label, Transcending Obscurity Records. How did that change happen, and how was this more beneficial for the band, David?
Yeah, things were slowing down over at Cyclone Empire. When they released our From the Mortuary EP, they only released it on CD, no vinyl. We actually had to license the vinyl to another smaller Swedish label called Sound of Records. And we were actually contracted to release another album on Cyclone Empire. But we kindly asked Martin over at Cyclone Empire if we would be allowed to be released from our contract to work with another label. He was very cool about it and say, you guys gotta do what's best for the band. Mm-hmm. Because we had some other offers that were coming into our inbox.
So you already had, when the time that you asked them to Cyclone cancel the last album, you already had contact with the people from Transcending Obscurity Records?
No, a couple of other labels actually.
Get in touch with these guys.
Let me see here. I think it was Johnny from bands like BLOODBATH and Just Before Dawn, and he has a million band.
Yeah.
He spoke very kindly about them and said that they were a great label to work with, and we were a little bit skeptical because we weren't super familiar with the label, but after having been in contact with the label over Canal, we were quite impressed with his passion for the music. He's very available, he's quick to answer questions, and he's quick to help you out, both the bands and the fans and the customers. Great with all that stuff. So it was very promising, and we had a meeting in our rehearsal room discussing the offer we got from him and the offer we got from other maybe considered bigger labels. But we said the thing that's different with Transcending Obscurity Records and other labels is that he does a lot of stuff differently. And, metal fans can be a bit conservative, and so can we in the band. But we took a step back and said that his label is actually growing, and there's not a lot of indie labels that are growing and getting stronger every year. Most of them struggle a lot, and I know it's a struggle for Transcending Obscurity, and he works all the time, but his label is actually growing and getting more and more recognized for every year and every release. So he's doing something right, and we want to be a part of that.
You're the first Swedish death metal band that they have signed?
No, I think Paganizer was on there before us. They also went from Cyclone Empire to
Transcending Obscurity Records. For Funerals Eternal was released in late December, December 30th, 2018, via Transcending Obscurity Records. The album contains 10 solid cuts, take the traditional Swedish death metal sound, characterized, of course, by the down-tuned guitars and insanely addictive groove. Dave, don't you mind to present us the album tracking list, and if you so wish to describe a little bit on each song, if you so wish?
The album starts off with the track Vaults of Undead Horror, and I think that's the most we're not a technical death metal band, but that's the most technical song that we have ever written. It's really fast, and the riff uses the whole neck of the guitar. And I think it's a perfect opener because it gets right into it immediately, which you might find surprising. A band called High on Fire, we are big fans of.
Great band, yes.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic, really great riffs and aggressive while still being really, really groovy, you know. Gathering Their Bones is a traditional headbanger, the third song on the album, and we wanted to have a lot of different tempos on the songs on the album to have a lot of variety, because a lot of death metal bands are afraid to slow down, you know. But I think this like marching, headbanging track is among my favorite sorts of death metal tracks, you know. Dormant Disease is the song that follows after that, and it contains this album's bass solo. We have made a point to have some bass solos on all albums that we have released, because we think it's a dying art and more people should do it. Want to make a point about having a lot of fun bass parts. A lot of bass players in death metal bands only play rhythm guitar, basically. A great blessing to have an actual good bass player in your band, so you should let him shine if you have one.
Sure.
The fifth song is called Of Gods No Longer Invoked, and it was actually the last song we wrote for the album. It was the only song we wrote after Sebastian rejoined the band. All of the other songs were written already when he joined us again.
Okay.
So it's the song we did a video for as well. Accursed is the sixth track on the album, and it's a very, narrative song. It has a story about the burning of the Templars, and it's also a very very slow song, which gives the album a bit of variety. Horrendous Sight was the first single that was released. It's based off At the Mountains of Madness story by H.P. Lovecraft. Stygian Void is you could call it the title track. We have never had any title tracks on our albums, but the titles of the albums always come from the lyrics of one track on the album, and the line "Flesh for Funerals Eternal" is a part of the track Stygian Void. Buried is another slow track that's kind of a tribute to Bolt Thrower, one of our first death metal bands we got into, and it was a high time that we did a nod to them. And Bled Dry is a great finishing track. We have, just playing the fastest you can and finishing off the audience before finishing off the album.
David, thank you very much for describing the album. Great 10 tracks. I love the album. Thank you very much for sending me it. Yes, I highly encourage everybody who hasn't listened to this album to go out there, buy the album, because it's a great album. You won't be regret, and listen to all the songs. The songs are very great. Talking about this album, yes, Swedish death metal veterans will unleash their freest album till date. Flesh for Funerals set new standards for a style entirely taken forward the existing template and expanding upon in every way possible. How was the new material for the album Flesh Funeral created, the writing and the recording part, David?
Pretty much like all our other albums, but we wanted to pay a lot of attention to detail this time around. Because to make the album interesting, there's a lot of bands playing Swedish death metal, whether the bands are Swedish or not. For example, Rebel in Flesh, they are guys in Germany. I know the guys in Nocturnal Hollow are from Venezuela, and this type of death metal has been spread all across the globe, and I think it's great. But you gotta try to stand out somehow, because a lot of people will just hear the guitar tone and say, oh, it's another Swedish death metal album, and not pay attention to the rest. We really, really worked hard on putting in these small variations and breaks, and as I spoke about earlier, the shifts in tempos and bass stuff to keep it interesting. And previously albums, we have usually come up with a lot of stuff in the moment when we are recording, and we did this time as well, but I think we were even more prepared this time because we had thought out every minor detail in the album. We knew exactly how to play everything when we entered the studio and exactly all the minor details that we wanted to get into the album. So I think a lot of people have told me that when they listen to the album the fourth time or even the 10th time is when they hear something that they haven't heard the previous times they listen to it. And I think that's the way to make an album that stands the test of time, that doesn't get boring. Because at the first listen you might think, yeah, it's just another Swedish death metal album, but if you give it a bit of time, I think you'll find a lot of details that you didn't hear the first time.
Yeah, that's true, because when I sit down and listen to track to the altar, then yes, listen to Swallowed by the Darkness especially, then now listen to Flash for Funerals Eternal. I really have to really sit down and listen to the songs over and over again to see, okay, that song, that's the different riffs, different blast beat. You cannot never tell, just listen to the album once. You just have to sit down and listen to it more times in order to see. Yes, and this album, you see that the band has progressed from one album to the other.
Oh, thank you very much.
Who has been responsible for the produce? I mean, where has the album been mastered?
It's been mastered by our old guitarist Petter as well. Okay. He's done both the mix and the master. He lives in Gothenburg now. We usually fly him up to our part of the country to record the drums, and then we do the rest in our own studio that's located in my house, in my basement. I have a pretty good setup to record all the stuff. So we do the bass, the vocals, and all the guitars and the backup vocals in our own studio. And then we send the files down to Gothenburg to Petter, where he finishes up the mixing and the mastering. Because he has a really big proper studio there where he usually does a lot of work for TV and movies and stuff like that. He also works on music occasionally. Mainly our stuff.
Didn't you want this album to be mixed, mastered, especially by someone more professionally?
We think Petter has gotten better each time, and he's really familiar with the band. He's familiar with our playing styles since he's been a member in the band, and he's also a very old friend of ours. So I think you have to weigh that maybe against having someone like Dan Svaner.
Yeah, Dan Svaner or at Fascination Street.
Yeah. Exactly, because you have it's cool to have a famous name attached to your album maybe, but then you will sound a lot like the other stuff they have mixed as well. Because of course, when you listen to our albums, you hear that we have this Swedish death metal guitar tone, but it's not the exact Dan Svaner production or Fascination Street production. I think it gives us a little bit of identity, and as I said, when we weigh having a famous name attached to it versus working with a guy that is so much more familiar with us than any of those guys will ever be, I think we will continue working with Petter for probably a long time.
The new album was released by Transcending Obscurity Records. This label has a very good name in the underground scene and does a very good job. However, 3 months after the release, are you satisfied with what Transcending Obscurity Records has done so far, and how has the critical and fans respond to Flash for Funerals been so far?
Oh yeah, it's been great, and actually when we get to see the final product, we were blown away because he spent so much time on the layout and the packaging, stuff like we never have experienced with any of our previous labels. It's been fantastic. Both reviews and interviews have been great. Couple of, as I said earlier, there's a lot of Swedish death metal bands out right now, so of course some people are starting to get tired of the genre and think it's a trend, but I think you should rather say that Swedish death metal is timeless. It's endured for such a long time, and even if death metal isn't cool or isn't popular anymore, death metal will always be around.
You believe after 3 months so far that the album has been released, what you have received so far from this record label, you guys are very happy, and these guys are booking your shows and tours as well?
We handle our own booking of tours and shows. Transcending Obscurity are planning on starting some show booking, I think, and that would be great to have help with that because he has a lot of contacts, But as of now, we handle all that stuff ourselves.
Okay, talking about the album, I've seen on the Bandcamp that Flash Funerals Eternal, Here We Come, comes in different way and a format. In how many format or package is this release available? And tell us, what is the Feral Autograph Silver in embossed CD set?
Yeah, I think it comes in 8-panel digipack for the CD, and there's also the CD box set. There's the black vinyl, a red vinyl with black and white splatter on it, and a vinyl box set as well. And as I was about to tell you earlier, we were blown away when we saw these boxes when we received our copies of them, especially the fabric flag, or what you call it, the flag that's in the vinyl box set. It looks amazing, and we've never experienced a label willing to spend that kind of money on us previously.
Oh, that's very cool. The Autograph Silver embossed CD box set. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, I have a bunch of cards here because he needed a couple of more. He sent us these nice printed band photos for us to sign. So we had a couple of signing nights where we got together, had a couple of beers and signed the cards and tried to write a little greeting on all of them, trying to come up with something unique to write on all of them. But it's really hard, when you're signing a couple of 100 cards.
Yeah.
But all of them comes with the CD, and I think they have a patches and some stickers, and they also have these signed cards that we ourselves have signed here in Sweden and then sent back to India for them to pack.
That's very cool. I haven't. This is the first time I really see this, that can get this autograph CD package.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool idea of him, and it's doable for us since we're a small band and have a lot of time. I can imagine bigger bands don't have the time maybe to sign special editions of their albums, so they are ready to purchase signed. But these are actually signed by us ourselves in our homes.
Swedish death metal maestros brought crushing riff on the videos in promotion of their brand new album, Flash Funeral Eternal. On November 1st, 2018, Horrendous Sight, the album promotion video, was released on November 14th, if I'm not wrong. Black Coven Secrets single album promotion on November 6th, 2018, of Gods No Longer Invoked official video. November 20th, Dormant Disease, a single promotion to the album. Who did the videos, and are you still gonna have a lyric video and a film video released at this point of time?
Yeah, the guy that did the Of Gods No Longer Invoked video is an old friend of ours from our original hometown, the small town in that me and Viktor is from. We used to play in a death metal cover band together, actually. He's a drummer. And he nowadays does some video production for, I think he's done some commercials, and he does a lot of small videos himself for his YouTube channel and stuff like that. And he was very, very excited to do a video with us. And we were very excited to do one with him as well, because we know he's a fan of death metal music. So the video is actually filmed in our rehearsal room. We have a quite nice rehearsal room with a stage and a bar and stuff like that, so it was easy for us to put up the light and stuff.
Oh, that's great. I really want to go to that rehearsal.
Yeah, you're welcome whenever you're here. But we have a lyric video coming out really soon as well.
For which?
It will be for Black Coven Secrets. It will be a proper video for that one with the lyrics as well, and the cover art will be a bit animated and moving and stuff like that. A lot of fire. Okay. And we also have a music video for Oh, I think it's Dormant Disease coming out as well, which is a traditional live video using live footage that was filmed at the release show for the album.
David, the band received plenty good reviews worldwide for this new album, Flesh for the Funerals Eternal. If I can read some, Devastation, Metal Express, Slovakia gave you 10 and 10. Brain Crusty, Crushing Riff for the Days, Metal Injection, US, a perfect 10. Dirty Room, US, a perfect 10, 10, 10. A vital and engaging list. Angry Metal Guy gave you 3.5 out of 5. Keeping things interesting throughout. Grizzly Bots, US, gave you 4.25 out of 5. High quality crushing death metal brutalism Netherlands gave you 4.5 out of 5. All Tongues Up X Crash Germany gave you 8.5 out of 10. Force of Shockwave Metal Ice Italy gave you 8 out of 10. No short of fun and exciting riffs. That Rhetoric gave you a 7.5 out of 10. How do you, as a band, feels after receiving all these great comments and scores of these medias in the genre?
Oh, it's fantastic, It's really great, but I try not to place too much weight into the reviews, Of course, you're glad when you get a good review, but you'll also be sad when you read a bad one, But it's when you put something out and people like it, it's great and
encouraging.
Yeah, it's very encouraging, and you feel that the hard work you put into it was worth it, even though we do it for ourselves. Yeah, it's very encouraging, and it really fuels you to keep on doing it as well.
One thing that makes it also a part that you guys can get so many good reviews of the album. It's not only the songs, but it has to do with the cover artwork. I believe that's the first presentation before you go over to the song. What this matter, Flesh for Funerals, has a dark and morbid cover art. I want to ask who is the author, and I really like his work. How did you actually choose the idea of the cover, and what exactly illustrates this cover art?
Oh, we always give Kostin free hands to do the cover art. We send him usually one song and the lyrics to that song, and we just tell him to draw what he feels when he listens to the music and reads the lyrics, because we think none of us are artists, or we are artists in the way that we play music, but not none of us can paint or draw. And if someone would tell me how to play music, it wouldn't be my best coming out. And I think it works the same way with the art in Kostin's paintings. If he is completely unrestricted to do what he thinks best, we will get the best work out of him.
Flesh for Funerals was released in late December 2018 via Transcending Records. David, my question, was there any album release party? And if there was one, where was it held and how was the night gone?
Oh, it was great. We had a release party in our hometown, which we usually do. We do a small event. I think we were about 150 people, and that was about the capacity of the venue as well, so it was packed. What we do differently than I think most bands just do a regular show, maybe play a couple of songs from the new album and then do a normal set. But we always play the whole new album from beginning to end. Only new songs.
New songs?
Yeah, only new songs.
Were there more bands that night?
Yeah, we had another local band playing with us that has been around for as long as us, but they're not very active anymore. They're called Territory. They play more like melodic thrash death metal, but when we were out playing small shows in youth centers and putting out our demos, they were doing the same stuff, so it felt right to have them playing alongside us again. And they put on a really, really good show, especially considering that the guys live spread out all over the country nowadays and only can meet for rehearsals, maybe occasionally a couple of times per year, after we played the whole new album, we usually do a cover set as well.
Okay.
As like to the audience, because they've endured listening to songs they've never heard before. We played some covers for them as a fun surprise at the end of the show. So we played 10 new songs and then 6 covers before we get off stage, drink some beers.
How was the night? It was a small club, big club. It was really packed.
Yeah, it was a club for 150 people, and I think we had 150 people there. It was great. There's actually a lot of video from it. We filmed the whole show with several cameras and recorded the audio professionally. We've been regularly putting up songs from the release show on our YouTube page and on our Facebook as well.
I will take some time to check it out.
It's some cool stuff. It's better than just the somebody filming on their telephone or something like that. It's properly recorded,
Delivering old school death metal for over a decade, they will descend from their northern home base with 3 full-length albums in the baggage. The latest being the 2018 offering Flash for Funeral Eterna. One big show the band have pending are, according to my notes, is the GAM Rocking Festival 2019 in, if I may say it right, Gränsenberg Folks Park, Sweden. That's on June 1st. There will be a 2-night festival with great bands like Unleash, like we did interview like a couple months ago, Enzima, Aspix, Vomitory, Hypocrisy, Valkyria, Birdflesh, Godforsaken, and many more bands, great bands. What can the fans expect from the band for this event? And are you gonna be hanging around the 2 nights?
No, we're actually just going down for the night. We're playing. We have wives and kids. Some of us are actually expecting kids this summer, so we don't feel comfortable leaving home for too long of a time. But we always bring our best to live shows because we fucking love playing live. I think we have quite a short set there. I think we're playing half an hour or something like that. So we're gonna really pack it with as much songs as we can and not waste any time to talk between them and stuff like that. We're just gonna pound on playing some death metal.
Do you believe, David, that you can still play songs of all 3 albums, or you wanna really consider just playing songs of the new album?
Oh, we always try to play songs from all albums. Now, this summer, Flesh for Funerals Eternal is really new, so I think we're gonna try to play some extra songs off of that one. But for sure, we will play songs like Welcome to the Graveyard from the first album, and maybe Altar of Necromancy as well. And from Where Dead Rings Dwell, we usually do As the Feast Begins, at least. But we always try to have something from all albums. But maybe when we're playing such a short set, it might just be 1 or 2 songs.
We only entering April now. I mean, just the 4th month of the year. What else will be there for the fans to catch somewhere on the road for the rest of 2019? Where will you guys be?
We haven't had any more shows booked that I can reveal yet, but we're working on some stuff. Hopefully, as I said, some of us are expecting kids this summer, but there are a couple of festivals later in the year that we hope to get into. But we're also, as I mentioned, we have these videos coming out, and we try to keep our fans engaged. If we're not able to play shows, we try to come up with something else to do. Hopefully we'll have some cool split or something coming out maybe late this year or early next year. We've also been providing fans with a couple of tabs to our songs, guitar tabs, so they can learn our songs, because a lot of people have been asking for it. And of course, between that, we're writing new music as well.
Do you believe for the Swedish in particular and the Scandinavian fans, you guys gonna be hanging around, maybe doing shows in the area?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so as well. As I said, maybe in the fall of this year. I don't think we will do any extensive touring or very many festivals this summer, but we're aiming for the fall and maybe the winter.
For fans that like bands like BLOODBATH, Gatekeeper, Dismember, Entombed, NIHILIST, ENTRAILS, Unleashed, Grave, AMON AMARTH, at the Gates, NIHILIST, as I said, ENTRAILS, yes, then there's absolutely no way in all of hell that you are not going to love Feral, and you go out there, buy this great new album, Flesh for the Funerals. I mean, talking about this great Swedish death metal band, once again, I highly recommend not only this new album, but the earlier albums as well. You have to check them out because you have to really dig deep inside where these guys came from in order to understand the latest work. I mean, so that's why I really highly recommend you to go buy the earlier demos, and if you wish, just the full length albums, Drag to the Altar, that was in 2010, and Swallow by the Darkness. Grab this album. This was released in 2015, and listen to these albums. Normally bands always say, okay, the newer albums is better. Listen to these albums before Flesh for Funerals Journal. David, tell me if I'm not wrong, I'm all right. I mean, these albums are very great albums, all on their own. I mean, with great tunes. And then I'm really enjoying these older albums and listen to the new album as well. I mean, come on. I don't, because it's a new album, I say, okay, this album is better. No, perfect albums as well. I mean, that's why I highly recommend our listener to go by and listen to these albums and support the band. I mean, these guys are doing a hell of a fucking great job, and we really need to support them. That's why, I highly recommend this band, Feral. And for you out there, if you really love a great, Scandinavian, Swedish death metal, you have to add Feral to your list and have these albums in your collection. Okay, David, I want to highly thank you very much to make this possible, this interview possible, and I want to hand you over the microphone of Metal Messiah Radio for you to invite all your friends, all your fans to support the bands, to buy the early albums, as just said, and to buy merchandises. If you guys do, you guys have a lot of merchandise. I saw them on your Bandcamp, and to attend the show you guys have coming in support of this great new album, Flesh for the Funerals.
Thank you very much, man. It's been an honor to be here. And thank you for some really good questions as well. It's been a pleasure.
David, like I always say, metal on. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.